Welcome into the Irish Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host, and, well, it's been a little quiet in terms of Notre Dame adding players in the transfer portal so far.
I'm Alan Pinkett, two-time All-American. The one thing that gives me solace is, you remember who the last team to beat Indiana was?
I like that. I'm Allison Hayes. I've been covering the Irish for more than 20 years. And while the Irish have missed out on a couple of key transfer portal guys, there's no need to panic.
I'm Reggie Brooks, 1992 All-American. IU, a football power? Really? Hey, big ups to Kurt Signetti.
Play like a champion today. It's the Fighting Irish Squad Show. Everything Notre Dame Fighting Irish every week. Breaking down the biggest news and game-changing plays the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Wake up the echoes. The Fighting Irish Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Irish Squad Show here on the Locked On Irish YouTube and audio channels. Joe George, Alan Pinkett, Reggie Brooks, and Allison Hayes here with you for the next hour as we talk all things Notre Dame football. The transfer portal, it's open. Notre Dame has players leaving. Not a lot of players coming yet. Visits are happening, but we're waiting to see that big splash in the portal to happen for the Irish. So far, we'll talk about Indiana because they seem to be a problem, not just on the field, but off the field now for Notre Dame as well. Notre Dame makes a hire for defensive line that I would categorize as a splash move. We'll talk about the college football playoffs as well. But Allison, I'll start with you in this one. The portal, Joshua Burnham seems to be the biggest name. He goes to Indiana. Won't be the last time we mention them here on this show today. That seems to be the biggest loss so far. Just your early reaction as we are, 3 days into the portal being open?
That was the biggest surprise for me to enter the transfer portal for Notre Dame. Excuse me. I was really surprised to see him make the leap. And then for him to decide to go to Indiana, I mean, immediately, as soon as you share that information that he was entering the portal, people are instantly, he's going to IU. He's going to follow Pat Coogan to IU. He's going to go to Indiana. And sure enough, he is committed and going to IU. And this is a big loss for Notre Dame. And people say, oh, well, he didn't have huge numbers. And he was a part of that rotation. And he was expected to be a key contributor for this upcoming season. And so that leaves a weakness, a spot there for Notre Dame that they need to figure out and fill. Defensive tackle is already going to be a key spot that Notre Dame needed to figure out in this transfer portal. And so now you can add in someone with the experience like Josh Burnham. And just numbers for you, he played in all 12 games last season. He had just 4 starts, but he recorded 16 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, a pass breakup, and a pass defended. And so that was a big one. I mean, I didn't want to see him go, and I was looking forward to seeing what he was going to do next season. Now we're going to have to watch him doing what he was going to do at IU, and their defense and just the waves that team has made has been incredible. We're looking where it's going to, because Notre Dame also lost defensive ends Junior Tui Alamaka and Jordan Botello, and so there's a lot of guys that are just missing now at DE. And so they're going to be looking to Boubacar Traore and Bryce Young. Those guys were already going to be, along with Josh Burnham, expected to stand up and really take on the brunt of those snaps. And so now it's just going to be Traore and Young on their own. And then you've got, of course, the young guy, freshman Rodney Dunham coming in. He's a 4-star prospect, but he's just going to be a true freshman. So that's definitely a spot where Notre Dame is going to be needing some help. We already knew defensive tackle was an issue. Don't forget Donovan Heinisch. He announced his medical retirement this past week as well. That was a big surprise for me too. Shoulder injury, and Donovan Heinisch, not necessarily huge flashy numbers, but he was a captain on this defense. He was somebody who really earned his spot into that rotation, and that's another big loss because as a captain that you're missing not only the physical and ability on the field, but you're missing what he did in the locker room and how he was able to work as a teammate with those other players. So those are a couple of big losses that the Irish are going to be dealing with on defense. And those are some spots now that we're going to have to see in this portal. I don't know how much you want me to get into that kind of stuff, but I've got tons of information there as well. I can let some of you guys have your turn to chat.
Educate us.
Reggie, I'll throw it to you here. Just what your thoughts on now where the defensive line stands as we are a couple of days of the portal being open, and as Allison just laid out, guys, unfortunately medically retiring and guys just leaving in the portal. It just feels like now that's a major question mark at this moment as we're live here, because it could change any second. But just as we are here right now with where the defensive line stands.
Oh, that is definitely a problem. I mean, that was the main need coming into, the portal season, if you want to call it that, was defensive tackle in particular. But now, because you need at least 2 deep across the board. And a defensive tackle, you kind of need 3 deep to a degree. But now you're losing defensive ends that were valuable components to what was a pretty successful defense, that developed and, became a stalwart for this Notre Dame football team. And you're losing some of the key contributors in those areas. And, people say if they want, but man, IU, good gracious. This is, you look at it, I say, what was always the pinnacle football program in Indiana was Notre Dame. That has changed and changed quickly. So, I don't know where, again, I don't like getting into the recruiting and now portal, whatever you want to call it, because again, you don't know what you're going to get until you get the kid on campus. I do like the fact that, we recruit more from, the, high school level, because I know that's something that's becoming less of a factor, now that they're talking about having grown men come back to college. That's a whole nother story. But I do like the importance of developing young people and building them. And the thing about it, we basically developed Josh and these other guys, and they're taking their skills somewhere else. So it's like, so that's, I guess that would be my biggest concern, is that, did we bring in, like I said, Allison talked about the young man that we brought in, defensive tackle, but you got to have more. You got to have the depth. That's how you win, championships, is having the depth, because you're going to run into injury issues. That's just a part of it. And it's just been a little, disconcerting. Again, it's still early, but the fact that, we're losing pieces as opposed to picking pieces up is a little disconcerting. I wonder if it had anything to do with the change in, with from a coaching standpoint, and we'll talk about it. With losing Al Washington to linebackers, and that makes a difference sometimes. Like I said, because you kind of get connected with your coach, and if your coach leaves, or even if he moves to a different position, or coach a different position, you can feel a certain type of way. I get that, but man, Josh Burnham, that was a tough one to see go.
Well, I'll start off with an apology, and the apology is I don't really pay a lot of attention to the portal or to recruiting, and some of it is bias going back to when I played, because I know that when I came in, I wasn't a 5-star. I don't know if 5-star existed when I came in, but there were, I guess, blue ribbon, I guess is what they called for with your can't miss prospects. And we had some blue ribbons on our team that couldn't bust a grape. So I lost faith in this rating system. But I think it's been perfected over the years. And so the way I treat the portal and recruiting is show me what you got when you get here, and then I'll start to follow you. But I don't want to hear all the stuff about what you did in high school, what you did at another program. The one thing I am happy with the way Marcus handles the portal is it's not just going out and finding talent. You have to find someone that's going to be a fit. it has to be a fit, and they have to want to be able to withstand all the rigors of the academics, which to me Marcus embraces, and he makes that a positive. And I think the young kids now understand now that you don't just go to a football factory, because that doesn't benefit you in any way. It sort of solidifies the thing we've been saying for years. It's a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision. So I like the way we handled the portal. The fact that we lost some guys, that's going to happen. They are looking for another type of experience. I would be the last one to hold them back. If they don't want to be here, get them out, because they become a cancer to your team if they don't want to be here and stay here. But it does open the door for folks that are willing to come. And if you look at the track record of Notre Dame in putting people in the pros, we've got a pretty good record of putting people in the pros. So those that want to transfer, I think, would do well if they are a good fit and good person, and the culture is on their side to come in. But usually I've looked at it as a way of just shoring up talent, not like a Texas Tech where it's like, we got an open checkbook, come on now. It's never been like that. It's always been, we've got these specific needs, so I hope we can fill those needs. And my main thing in the portal is I hope we get 2 elite receivers for CJ Carr.
Allison, what else you got for us on the D-line here?
Yeah, before we move past the D-line, I have been following at least the transfer portal in recent days quite a bit. And Notre Dame does have some pretty big ones scheduled for visits this week and today, tomorrow, the next couple of days, including Penn State defensive tackle Xavier Gilliam. That's on Tuesday. Monday, Central Florida defensive tackle Horace Lockett. So for today, they've got Horace Lockett, and then the big one is the Wake Forest defensive tackle, and I'll mess up his last name, but it's Mateen Igirawaba, something like that. But he's a big target, and that's a big one. He's here today from Wake Forest. They're also looking at Michigan State defensive end Jalen Thompson. So this is a big week, and I know it's a 2-week long period, but this week is key for Notre Dame to start making some moves on some guys. A lot of guys they're going on their first visit. So and we'll talk about some of the guys that Notre Dame's missed out on, some of the guys that have gone to IU instead of Notre Dame. Those guys had IU scheduled for their first visit, which means they probably already had IU or whatever their first team was on their radar as as a school they wanted to go to first off. So if Notre Dame had some scheduled visits with them, but once they went to their first one, which was IU, or another guy they were looking at was a cornerback who chose USC. USC was also his first visit. So those were not necessarily huge surprises in that sense. But the biggest thing for Notre Dame is that they've got some big time defensive tackle and a defensive end guys coming in this week in the next couple of days. So keep an eye out. If you're not following it closely or have not been following it closely, now's the time to start paying attention, because we're going to start seeing a lot of dominoes falling into place. And now we can transition over into some other positions, but IU has been absolutely killing it so far. They've already got 8 players out of the transfer portal, and it's just been 3 days. Today's day 3. And so, yes, it is a new day in college football when Indiana University is the destination that some of the top players in the country are wanting to go to and transfer into.
That's a great way to pause it there. Let's take a break, and then let's talk about that, because it is a wild world that we live in. That Indiana has become a problem for Notre Dame. We'll hit that next here on the Irish Squad Show.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place live bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Their live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
All right, so Nick Marsh is probably the next guy to discuss here. Stud at Michigan State. Enters the portal. Kind of everyone like him, Cam Coleman, the top of the list, the wide receivers. Long story short, he ends up in Indiana. And Reggie and Allison, you both have mentioned it. Indiana now, it's just you've got this program who Curt Cignetti has turned it from literally the worst program in all of college football, the most losses ever, and now they're in the semifinals. They're going to have probably the number one pick in the draft. They have the Heisman Trophy winner. They're getting all these kids in the portal. Indiana's a problem. And it's becoming a problem for Notre Dame. Like you've seen now Burnham, Pat Coogan, like shout out to him for the Rose Bowl. But they're a problem. And it's Reggie. I like struggle with this because it's crazy to me that Indiana has a chance to win a title before Notre Dame does this year. Like it kind of makes me sick to feel that way.
Again, little by little, I'm starting to become a fan of Curt Cignetti. The things that his approach, how he approaches, coaching his coaches, very familiar in the way, discipline, focusing on doing the little things the right way, and being physical and being a team, and that's the thing that really got me, as I said, the cohesiveness of this unit and what, I like Notre Dame in that respect too, because Coach Freeman has brought that mindset. He's a young guy, very, very energetic. Curt Cignetti, he's old school. And the fact that old school is still working, that lets you know that there are young men that still have a desire to play this game for the game, not a paycheck. And I have no qualms with, like I said, guys getting paid, but it's very refreshing to see someone or see players going somewhere where, and let's not mistake this though. Also, IU has been it has this party-esque atmosphere. So let's not think, well, oh man, IU, what is that? Hey, I know back in the day, I knew some folks. We used to go down to IU and party. After we beat that behind, we go. So it's not like there's nothing there. Let's start from that premise. These are still college kids, and they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But the fact that it's become a powerhouse in such short notice, I mean, it's like IU, Hoosiers, they play basketball there. They don't play football. This is a completely different dynamic, and coming to Indiana is not the mecca of social life.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, so it's like South Bend, Bloomington. I get it. I don't get it, but I actually get it. These are young people. And if you're going to go somewhere and if you're going to learn to play and deal with a program that's changed the dynamics of what IU is. And Curt Cignetti has done that, and I'm a fan. It's hard to say this, but Curt Cignetti he's won me over, and it's because of his approach. And he's the same every game. He's the same, and I imagine he's the same way in practice. You know what you're going to get, whether you like it or not. This person, he cares about you. I was just reading something just recently about how he tells us, his coaches, go home, be with your family. That's rare. Said this is not your entire life. And he gives a perspective And that perspective filters down to the coaches and on to the players. And if you have that type of mindset, man, no, they better watch out. They ain't got to go too far to look for an attractive program that's going to bring in top talent and also help you afterwards. And that's the thing that, I'm like, we were kind of that we were the only one in town doing that. And it's not the way anymore. It's like, hey, what we got to refine a niche or whatever it is, because man, this is, like you said, Joe, this is a problem. This is Indiana. This is not, California, New York, Florida, Texas. This is Indiana. And we're sitting here saying that Notre Dame is no longer the powerhouse of Indiana football.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I wouldn't worry about it because number one, kids like to go someplace they can win. Number two, it's refreshing to hear that kids want to be coached. And whether that's old school or new school, these are still young men that need nurturing. And I see Signetti in that vein. Now, Reggie, do you think Signetti would be good in the NFL? Hell no.
No.
Because I think of it like this. In college, the coaches are dictators. They control everything that goes on. But in the NFL, that's a partnership. In fact, most of the guys don't even call the coach. Call him by his first name, and most of the time they're making more money than the coach. And I think, Marcus checks a couple of boxes. He's still young enough where there's that sort of partnership element. They see him as one of them. But number two, he can still coach them hard because he's the authority in the room. And I was concerned about that when they first hired him, because at some point he was going to have to dog cuss them for doing something. How would they take it? Because he was their buddy. But Marcus has far surpassed in terms of how I thought he would do handling that situation of being the head man and being the friend. But I see it nothing more as guys just going where they're winning. Now, what will happen? We have to wait and see what happens when they finally, and I don't think it'll be this year. I don't think it'll be the next couple of games. We'll have to see what happens, how they react when they lose. All right. When they lose, will there be finger pointing, or will they just regroup and go again? There's plenty of talent out there, and good for Indiana that they're able to go soup up some. But they're the latest thing, they're the hot thing, and I don't mind kids going there. Notre Dame is still going to get theirs because if kids do their research, they will understand how valuable this place is. And I hope I don't sound like the old man saying, get off my lawn, and not recognizing that Indiana is a force. Yeah, they're a force, but let's play them again and see what happens.
I like that idea. Losing out on the Michigan State wide receiver, Nick Marsh, I think that was interesting to me. It's crazy, one, that you would choose to leave MSU. Now, granted, Michigan State is not the team that it's been in years past, but you're choosing to leave Michigan State to go to Indiana. I mean, the college football world is just so different now than it's been and what we've been accustomed to. You just wouldn't expect to hear that in this, but it's a different world now, so we're going to have to get used to it. When I worked for the Big Ten Network, Indiana was one of my main beats, and so I was in Bloomington all the time throughout football season for a few years. And I never even compared Indiana to Notre Dame in terms of recruiting. I would look at Indiana and Purdue. And at that time, this now has been about 5 years, I was like, man, if I was a player, I would rather go to IU because of their facilities, because of the campus, because of the town, and not necessarily because they were going to win. But if you were in that caliber where you're between a Purdue and an IU, even though Purdue, I think, was still sort of winning out just based on what I was visibly seeing in the fan base and everything. I just thought, man, IU is a team where you could have some success, but you just had to get over that hump. And so it's amazing now to see that the Hoosiers have done that, and they're gangbusters right now. And they got Nick Marsh. He chose them with maybe not even knowing who their quarterback is going to be. Fernando.
That's my question.
He hasn't declared yet. So
who's the quarterback?
Well, they got Josh Hoover, the quarterback from TCU.
Yes, they did, and that's going to be,
they got a
quarterback, imagine, the player of the future. Just an interesting stat for Nick Marsh before we move on. According to PFF, he leads all wide receivers with 28 missed tackles forced. So beyond his stats of 1,300 career yards and touchdowns and all this stuff, it's the missed tackles that he's forcing that I think really stands out. So now Notre Dame is left trying to find who else are they going to go after. And they do have a couple of wide receivers scheduled for visits this week, including today. They've got Iowa State wide receiver Xavier Townsend. He's coming in for a visit, and he's considered one of the top return men in college football. In addition to his receiver stats, he's coming off an injury, so his numbers aren't huge from last season. 243 yards, no touchdowns in the air, but he did have one rushing touchdown last season. He also has visits with Florida State, Purdue, and Missouri. So keep an eye on that name, Xavier Townsend. And then also Rutgers wide receiver Ian Strong. He's a big target. He has 1,600 career yards and 12 career touchdowns. And they also have coming in today a tight end, Brody Foley, coming in from Tulsa. So they are looking to make some moves. Those are some names that stand out. They've got visits scheduled for the next couple days here. So be on the lookout for those guys. But IU has been absolutely killing it. And you said not a ton of money to work with. I looked this up because I wanted to know where everybody's like, how much money are they spending in the portal? Last year, I don't know how accurate it is, but based on just, Google searching and looking it up online, it said they only spent around $3 million. I don't know if that is real or not, but that seems very, very low, and that they're looking at for this coming year at about $13 million. Of course, Mark Cuban making a huge donation to his alma mater and designating it for sports. So I would expect if they haven't been spending a lot of money in the past, they're going to have a lot more money to be playing around with as they move forward. And they've already brought in the TCU quarterback that you mentioned and this wide receiver, and they've got some other big time players that they've already brought in with these 8 so far.
Quick mention here, too, as we're talking about the wide receiver position. Matt Freeman reported that Jordan Faison is stepping away from lacrosse, full-time football player now as well. So we'll see how much that impacts him. I mean, I think it's probably the right decision to pick one at some point, I would imagine.
Why?
Reggie.
Why? He didn't have to. He's so good at both and winning national championships. I would have liked to see him stay at
that's a lot of wear and tear on your body.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think he just kind of like, and I actually think he feels that, hey, he has a future at the next level. And again, I think that's kind of one of the things that really probably propelled him more than anything. And again, he's won a national championship in lacrosse, so he's kind of done his thing there. And his little brother's coming in. So I think he and this is just me. I don't know him. I'm just speculating here that it's like, hey, that's a lot of, wear and tear. Because like I said, I ran track, which was not as, physically grinding as lacrosse is. And you're doing it going from fall to spring, right into fall ball or, summer ball. That's a lot. That's a lot of wear and tear on your body. And again, especially if he has an opportunity to make it to the next level, I think it just makes sense to lock in with something. And actually, I think you can make a little bit more money in football at the next level.
Fair enough.
I would agree with you. I would assume that he's done some consultation. You can get a pretty good idea, as I'm sure like Jadarian Price did, making his decision to go to the next level. You can get good information on where you stand amongst all the competition, where you would likely be drafted. And of course, when draft day comes, the one thing that you can count on is you can't count on a damn thing. But you can get enough information to know whether is this a good decision or not. But I see Jordan Faison as a guy that could play on the next level, especially when, I do the Colts and they've got this receiver named Josh Downs. And on third down, that's who, of course, Colts went through 3 quarterbacks this year, but everybody on third down was looking for Josh Downs. He's the same sort of makeup and performer as a Jordan Faison. So there's a room for, not all receivers are 6'4" and run a
not
10,
everybody's
300
Megatron.
meters.
No, not
Right,
everybody's.
not everybody's the Megatron. There's a need for some smaller, niftier receivers. So that's good to hear.
And he's a return guy too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's got a spot in the NFL. And as our chats pointed out, the most you can make in lacrosse right now is like $30,000 a year. That's like, you make like 4 times that of the practice squad in the NFL.
I do that
this
flipping
point.
burgers.
Yeah, it's not really a job probably for a Faison when he leaves. All right, let's take our next break. We got one more portal thing I want to hit on here. We'll talk about a new hire that Notre Dame made, how the trickle down effect, all of that got mentioned a little bit earlier as well. We'll get to that next here on the Irish Squad Show. The Irish Squad Show is brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of all of it. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I mean, like, if you look at some of the attendance for some of these bowl games, probably getting the games for like $5. It was so barren out there at some of these. And plus they got the zone deals as well that stand out. You can pick the section, Game Time picks a seat, and you can save even more. And one of the best parts, all the prices, including all the fees up front, making the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football game tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, so we've been focusing mostly on players coming and going, and I think there's maybe more positive approach to this one because we know CJ Carr is the quarterback. That's not changing. He's the quarterback for at least next year, maybe the year after as well. So Kenny Minchey, like where he was going to end up in the portal, I thought was a really interesting question. A lot of people were projecting Virginia. Instead, he's going to be Dylan Raiola's replacement at Nebraska. I think it's a really good fit for him. I think Matt Rule, in terms of like when he was being hyped up as the Penn State replacement for James Franklin, was a little overhyped, but Matt Rule is a great offensive coach. So, Allison, your thoughts on just that fit for Minchey at Nebraska, and maybe, he can help this Notre Dame Indiana problem by beating them next year.
Well, I saw one of the comments we have in the chat here, and that said he's going to demolish IU next year in Lincoln. I think that Kenny is another one of those guys that Notre Dame fans don't hold a grudge against him for wanting to explore another possibility where he can be the starter. And I feel that way as well. I really liked Kenny. I liked covering him. I saw a major growth in him from last year to this year in the competition, having a chance to talk with him personally several times during the summer and then during the early parts of fall. And just his maturity and his confidence was the biggest jump, because what stood out early on was CJ. And I've talked a lot about the CJ's confidence from day one, and Kenny was already here and he was already in the competition, but he just he is a soft-spoken guy by nature. And so he's not a big rah-rah guy. And I don't think he needs to be that, but it was good to see that confidence in him growing and him, coming off with some really great passes during fall camp and to having, some moments. I hate to see him go because he's a really solid backup quarterback and you never know what could happen to CJ, but I also don't begrudge him for going, and he still has 2 years of eligibility. And he was the number 5. I know you don't put a lot of emphasis on the recruiting stats from when they're coming out of high school, but not just a top 300 guy, but he was the number 5 dual threat quarterback in the 2023 class. And so Nebraska is getting a very solid player, a guy who does have a little bit of experience, albeit as a backup, but he's a great guy in the locker room. He is going to be a great field general for that team, and he's going to have the ability to hurt the defenders on the run. You never know what he's going to do. He's almost a little bit more of a threat running the ball than he is passing the ball, but I think he's found a good spot there in Nebraska, and I'd like to see him, just like you wanted to see Steve Angeli have a good career, and he was off to a good start until the injury. I just hope no injuries happen for Kenny and that he gets his chance. But of course, if the opportunity ever arises and Nebraska and Notre Dame play each other, we're all rooting for Notre Dame.
Reggie, your thoughts?
I think it's a good fit as well because again, like Dylan Raiola, again, very off the cuff, off schedule throws and things. Kenny can make those throws. And again, they're coming off the 7-6 record. I feel good about the Nebraska team and their success. And I'm like that old school way of football. And Nebraska. I go back to the Big 8 days when Nebraska and OU would play, and that was kind of like the game of the year every year for Oklahoma, Nebraska. And you got those rivalries, but to see him get this opportunity, I think it's going to work out well for him because you want him to do well because he competed, he stuck it out, and fought, and you never heard any complaints, you never heard any griping about his situation. He handled it with such grace, and you just want him to be successful. And like I said, CJ is the guy. Him having that opportunity, I wish him the best. Again, would love to see him and get to Nebraska and really, take that program to another level with his play. But he's also going to take it to another level from a leadership standpoint because he has that type of personality that, hey, you're going to root for him just because he's going to be rooting for you. And you could see that with him and CJ. He would come in, take the snaps he was given and do the best he could with them. But he was rooting for CJ. And that's instead of competing against someone, which that's kind of what we focus on. He competed with him. They made each other better because the competition was so fierce. They both raised their game throughout the course of the fall. The summer and the fall, and it paid off for CJ, and I think it's going to pay off for Kenny because he's going to enter into another opportunity. He's going to enter into this opportunity, with confidence that hey, he can compete with anybody anywhere.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Dylan, right? Raiola?
Yeah.
Dylan was at Nebraska because his dad played at Nebraska, right?
Yeah, and his uncle was the offensive line coach who got fired this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that okay. That makes a little sense.
Family ties.
Yeah, but I will make sure to reach out to a couple of my Nebraska boys so that Minchie gets a warm welcome. And I'm talking about Mike Rozier. I don't know if I want to speak to Mike about him. Mike might corrupt him. But Jamie Williams does some work for the university at Nebraska, and I would be happy. And that's the thing. I was the same way with Angeli. I wanted to keep him, but totally understand them making this move, acknowledging the fact that CJ Carr is going to, get the majority of the snaps. I think it's important that you have a very competent backup quarterback, though, because the way these defenses are built, you're only as good as your backup sometimes. So I don't know where Notre Dame stands with a backup quarter. Is it Buckner right now, or is he done?
Nope, he's
No,
gone.
he's
Okay.
gone.
And
Okay.
Rizak also entered the transfer portal, and he's committed to South Dakota State
Okay.
University. So that leaves Blake Hebert, and then any guys they have coming in. They are targeting a
Didn't the
quarterback
kid
right now.
reclassify?
Who's
There's a
that?
kid that reclassified and he's coming in
Yes.
early.
Yep. One of those guys. Losing his
And he
name
was
off the
like
top
a
of my head.
top, which I still am confused about the reclassifying thing.
Hey,
It's
same. Makes no sense.
It's
It's
a
just like,
way
well,
of getting out
hey,
of high school
I'm
earlier,
supposed to come
right?
out next year, but I think I'll come out this year just because I want to reclassify. And how does that? I'm still trying to figure out how that actually works.
A lot of
That
AP
is
classes, a
so
lot of summer
following that.
classes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extra classes to get it done. Yeah,
It's
they're
interesting
also
that you can do that.
they are drawing interest, or they have interest in Braden Atkinson. He's the Mercer quarterback. He won the Jerry Rice Award, which is the most outstanding freshman at the FCS level. So he's got a bunch of big names. He's being looked at by Notre Dame, Syracuse, Baylor, Boston College, and Cal. So it's, step up from a lower program, obviously, but that could be a backup situation for the Irish next year. I want to hit on a couple other things about what we saw this weekend, and it's perfect that Alan's here because, Alan, you also host the Colts Squad show. And the first thing I want to hit on, Reggie and Allison, I don't know if you guys watched the Colts game yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. The entire game, all I had, because I cover the Texans as well. And Reggie, you're like in my head during the game. Because I'm just like, why didn't Riley Leonard throw the ball like this at Notre Dame? Like the whole time, like he's slinging the rock. And I know there's some backups in there for the Texans, but like they're still NFL players.
Oh, yeah.
Like, man, like Riley Leonard, like I was impressed with how he looked yesterday. Confused a little bit on why they had to play Phillip Rivers instead of Riley Leonard, honestly. But Alan, just what'd you see from Riley yesterday? Because it's, even though he's gone, like he's still a Notre Dame player at the end of the day.
Well, I don't want to sound like boastful in any way, but I anticipated him doing well because, I mean, once you play for Notre Dame, no stage is going to be too big. The lights aren't going to be too bright because you experience playing at Notre Dame. Now you're going to the NFL. Yes, it's a step up in competition, but I don't know if it's necessarily a step up in terms of magnification of the game, attention, eyeballs on say the Colts, because NFL, with a few teams that are exceptions, is a regional sport where Notre Dame is a national brand. So I mean, y'all understand what I'm saying in that regard. It wasn't going to be anything to be nervous about because of the number of eyes on him, because there were never more eyes on him than when he played at Notre Dame. But I think the fact that he's able to sit there and watch Daniel Jones and watch Anthony Richardson and see how a pro performs, you can't help but soak that up. And then we come to find out, how buddy he is with Phillip Rivers, because I guess they're neighbors in Alabama, and they talk frequently. So Riley performed well. He did a good job, and I think that part of the deal was the Texans. Their demeanor was, we are not going to let Jonathan Taylor run this ball. If anything, we're going to let Riley Leonard beat us. So maybe they were a little softer in the defensive backfield. But anytime Jonathan Taylor got the ball, I mean, they ran like their pants on fire to tackle him. But I was very pleased, and I think it shocked a lot of people in why he wasn't permitted to throw the ball downfield when he was at Notre Dame. The way he threw it yesterday just amazes me, confounds me.
Yeah. Well, it's not that he didn't. Did anybody watch our game against Duke had he not gotten hurt? Notre Dame would have lost, and he was throwing the ball. And I've always thought when he's able to he loves the contact. So, when he gets hit, it kind of energizes him, and that's a part of his game. And it's like, don't, and I think some of it was like Coach Freeman was like, don't turn the ball over to him, because he had a couple of turnovers
He did.
in the game.
Yeah.
But he is a free-flowing quarterback that you have to let go play. You can't, like I said, well, you can't do this, you can't do it. When you tell him you can't, he kind of shrinks. But when you say, hey, we're trusting you to do what you do, just go out, take care of the football, make your reads, and go play. And when he does that, that's his game. He's in his element when he's allowed to just go play and not have restrictions. And again, you get the good with the bad, similar to, and I'm not saying that he's, Lamar Jackson, but that's what you get. You're going to get these big plays, whether he's, with his arm or his legs. But when he's able to just let him play his game, he's one of the best there is. And I'm talking about Lamar Jackson in that regard. Riley can be so much more if they just allow him to play within himself and play with the confidence, because he was playing with confidence. I mean, he was smiling and running around. He was like, hey, he was a kid in the candy store because I'm getting my first start in the NFL. And that's what I always loved about Riley Leonard. He was always just, he was in the moment of, this is my opportunity. I'm just glad to be here. And he was just a cool young dude, man. Yeah. I was just like, dude, just go play. And when he did that, and that's what I saw in that game. It's like, man, that's the Riley Leonard that, I wish we could have allowed to, be when he was at Notre Dame.
A couple things stood out to me. So I had a chance to talk with Riley this summer at the QBs for a Cause event in Chicago. And two things I asked him that really stood out to me were just, and I'm expecting, because he is such a nice guy and he just knows how to say all the right things. I asked him, just about being drafted, and was that sort of a dream come true? And in my mind, I'm envisioning that he's going, oh, it was a dream come true. I've always wanted to play in the NFL and to have my opportunity, blah, blah, blah. And he said he was disappointed that he went as low as he did. And I thought that stood out to me, because he wasn't just happy to be there. He believes in himself. He believes that he belongs there. And I knew that he was going to do everything he had to do to prove that he belongs there. And then another question I asked him was just, what were some goals for himself for this year, for this season, his rookie year? And he said, it's not, I can't put a number on it. Oh, I want X amount of, touchdowns or this or that. He's like, I want to learn the playbook. He's like, and I'm going to dedicate every minute of my life basically to learning that playbook and to learning from the guys around him. And you touched on that, learning from Daniel Jones and learning now from Phillip Rivers. And so, those are the qualities that has endeared so many fans to Riley Leonard, is that what you're going to get in that sense. You got a guy who's going to give you every single ounce of his soul when he steps foot in the locker room, on the field, and whether that's just at practice or that's in his opportunity to become a starter. And it was a matter of time, and we'll see. I didn't necessarily think he was going to have this amazing NFL career, but he's off to a pretty good start, and I know Colts fans are really excited about it. But you also know that he's a guy that's going to make something happen. He has that moxie, and it's a different kind of attitude. It's never been a cockiness. It's almost like, kind of like a Fernando Mendoza. It's like, oh, shucks, gee whiz. But he goes out there and he just, I don't know, maybe people they don't take him as seriously as they should, or they take it for granted, or they're not giving him enough credit for as talented as he is. But when the game's on the line, at least in college, when he had that ball in his hands, you knew he was going to be a game changer in some way. So if we can see that continue to develop and grow and make this transition now into the pros, he could be a really quality quarterback for the Colts. And I'm excited. I love him. I love his family. I was really excited to see them be able to be there for it, and him to find them and throw the ball up into the stands to his dad. I mean, those are the things that you just love as a fan, and big fan of Riley's.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, you got a quarterback who tore his Achilles, who's not under contract, than Daniel Jones. So, like, the Colts have to re-sign him. It's like, did Riley show enough in one game to potentially be there with Richardson to wait till Daniel Jones returns next year, or who knows what Daniel Jones is like next year. So it'll be fascinating. Last thing we'll hit here, and we'll bring up the Colts again, because Notre Dame makes a big hire, I think, here. Charlie Partridge is the defensive line coach for the Colts. He goes back to, he's with Chris Ash at Wisconsin, gets a lot of credit, it seems like, for developing Houston Texan J.J. Watt. So whether it's, Al Washington moving to be the linebacker coach, this hire, or just, what this says about an NFL coach coming to Notre Dame, Reggie, kind of just take this wherever you want to take it about this hire and what this move means for Notre Dame's program.
Well, I mean, you look at it again. Charlie Partridge is someone again that loves football. He's a coach. And a lot of times everybody focuses on, like I said, he's coaching the pros. Man, that can. I mean, is it that much different now coaching in college than it's coaching the pros with the money that's out there, and again the talent that you're getting, and sometimes it's just, hey, you want to be a part of something of the growth. And, Alan touched on it in terms of, like I said, when you're in the pros, it's not like, you can't just say whatever you want to the players as a coach. And you're not developing them necessarily. You're just like, here's the game plan, go out and execute. At the collegiate level, there's still something to be said for being able to develop a player, to see their game elevate and grow and develop into, top 10 draft pick or defensive end. Some coaches gravitate to that opportunity to build a player and build them up and to develop them into something that, and again, just a love for the game. So I think this is awesome, and not really shocked because, again, like I said, and this is someone that Chris Ash knows, and he's going to be calling the defense. And there's a certain, you like to have your staff that, you just have a confidence in, that there's a trust factor. And I think, this is part of, developing that for Chris Ash, is having guys in there that he trusts and he has a real connection with, because the coaching staff, you can say what you want about, it's a player driven, league or whatever. In the NFL, yes. But in college, you need coaches that are going to be able to develop players. And if you don't have that and they don't have that trust, because players look to coaches at the collegiate level to hey, how can I get better? How can I develop? What can you do to move me to that next level? And you also have, for Notre Dame, a coach that is coached at the next level, that he can come in and say, oh yeah, by the way, here's the guys that I've coached in the NFL, so I can help you get there. And that was the thing that always made Nick Saban such a lore in coaches, is that, he coached guys that got him to the league and was just like, okay, his track record spoke for itself. And I think this is a similar situation where you have a coach that's coming in that to a position of great need. So, I'm glad they got him in here when they did. So now we can hit that portal and get guys in there and say, hey, Charlie, this guy fit what you need. Okay, go get him, and we'll do what we need to do. But I think that's the key part of it, is someone that can say, hey, I'm going to help you get to that next level. Not to say that Al Washington couldn't do that, but you have a guy that coached at that level to say, here's my track record, so here's what I can do for you.
Alan, you cover the Colts. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the Colts had a very good defensive line, but they suffered a lot of injuries, had a lot of depth, brought a number of guys off the street. But I think about it this way. A coach in the NFL is seeing the best of the best, and now he can bottle up all that knowledge and all the various techniques and attributes and bring that to a kid in college. All it's going to do is help you get better. And then I think you said it best. He's the guy who coached J.J. Watt, or was it T.J. Watt?
It was J.J. It was JJ.
Okay,
Yeah.
both Watts. There was a total of 3 Watts. But yeah, that I think says it all. From a technique perspective, how much he can add to a kid in college. I think that's a great hire. Anytime somebody can come from the NFL down to college and share what the guys on the pro level are doing, and maybe as a college kid you can gain some of those attributes, you can gain some of those techniques. It's only gonna make you better. So I think it's a positive move, and I think it's one that, since Notre Dame has lost the defensive lineman that you told me they lost, that Notre Dame needs to promote. Hey, we got a NFL dude at D-line now. So if you want to make it to the next level as well as win a national championship, you should come here.
Allison, your thoughts?
Just the only thing I'll add to that is, while he didn't have a successful head coaching career, he does have experience as a head coach. And that's something that Marcus Freeman likes in his assistant coaches as well. He likes to bring in guys who have that experience as a head coach. How successful it was or not, it just brings in a completely different perspective. And then, as you touched on, Alan, to have then the level from the NFL and what they were able to accomplish there, even while dealing with the injuries, I think is really, really going to be beneficial. And he's developed a lot of guys. He developed some guys at Pittsburgh also that went on to get drafted in the NFL. So those are all positives. And then Al Washington, I saw someone with a comment in our chat here on the stream asking, was that in an attempt to keep Al Washington on Notre Dame staff and moving him to linebackers coach? And I would say, yeah, it was. He was being sort of recruited. He was being wooed by his alma mater, Boston College, to potentially be the defensive coordinator there. But Marcus Freeman knows that he's got a really quality coach in Al Washington, and he wanted to keep him. And now he's one of the longest tenured coaches on Freeman's staff, and it's allowing him to just take another step in the right direction and develop more as a coach. Because, I think Al Washington is someone that we're going to see become a defensive coordinator sooner than later, and we're going to see him probably make his way to becoming a head coach someday as well.
All right, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button to here on the YouTube channel if you're watching live, or later on also all of our audio platforms, because things are changing. It's impossible in the transfer portal to be on top of everything as you're live. As KK Smith, the wide receiver, has entered the portal about 10 minutes ago, that was reported. So make sure you're subscribed, because whether it's us on Mondays, Tyler Monday through Friday, keeping you on all the news between now and January 16th, because there's so much going on. Guys going in, guys going out. It's a lot going on. So we will talk to you next week. Thank you for watching. Happy New Year to all of you. We will talk to you next Monday. Peace.